Hi, Rachel. Good to be seeing you here finally after following you online for a while. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I'm great, Khala. How are you?
yeah. I'm good too. I'm very much impressed and also inspired because I know your journey a bit, but for those who are listening in today, could you kind of walk us through how did you really decide to become an Oxford Pakistan scholar?
So I mean, uh, I didn't. I mean, they decided kind of for me by picking me for it, and I was also partly funded by the Commonwealth. But to answer your question, I had applied to the roads, and when I was shortlisted for the roads, is when I was like, okay, so I had a pretty decent chance of going, and
Yeah.
I will just try again in regular decision, like the regular cycle, and let's see where this goes. So that's how I kind of applied. And I applied to, of course, every scholarship that was there. And it just happened to be the case that both Commonwealth and OPP were willing to fund me. So that's how things kind of panned out. Yeah.
Uh, and so what did you do before your master's? Like, what was your journey like in Pakistan?
So I did economics from LUMS with a minor in English literature. And before that, I did psychology, economics, math, and English language at the Lyceum. So that was before grad school.
Okay. And then you went for this kind of program which is very big on intervention. So how will you decide that? Why did you decide to go with Oxford and why intervention? What is intervention if anyone is asking?
Right. No, I think that's a super important question. So when I was studying economics, I realized very quickly that economics has different branches, and I was less interested in pure economic theory, which is
Yeah.
like macroeconomics and microeconomics and like how trade works and stuff like that. I was more interested in this field called econometrics, which is basically testing what works. So
Okay.
it's experimentation. It's like, dividing people into random groups and testing, okay, if we give them like, a certain social intervention, like if we give therapy to half the people and then follow up with them like 10 months down the line, which group is most likely to do better. So that was very exciting to me, and I'm super happy that I got to learn about that in my undergrad with Dr. Farooq Nasir. I think he had a very lasting impact on me
Wow.
purely because of how passionate he is. So I was
Yeah.
looking for programs that could help me, understand that better. Because there's a lot of like, and of course I am, more of a quantitative researcher. So I wanted to see, what works basically, especially in the Pakistani context. So that's how I narrowed it down to this program to see and learn more about what works and how do we best measure what works.
Well,
So
very interesting. Thank you for breaking it down like in very plain language, what intervention looks like. But then can we say it's almost like a longitudinal study? What is then the difference between a longitudinal research program and a social intervention program?
right, so that's an important question. Longitudinal studies, and of course there are very few of them in Pakistan,
Uh,
tend to track individuals across, especially in public health, across the developmental cycle. So I always, and of course, I've taught at Habib also. So this is the example I would give to my students. There's this study that's led by Harvard that tracks people's happiness. So they want to
oh,
see
I,
over the course of people's, life, what makes them the happiest. So is it like, genetic? Is it money? Is it, like, is it the quality of relationships? Is it like, other things that we potentially can't think of? Is it religion? Is it, different things? So that's a longitudinal study, right? As opposed
I,
to shorter interventions like I give you a cash transfer. So like 10,000 rupees or the Benazir income support program, how can that change household decision making and household spending?
nice, nice. That explains well. And So when you were at Oxford, how was the journey like you were there? Any very high moment there?
It was very interesting. I think the best thing there was that I got to meet so many friends, and I made friends from around the world. And of course, like all of them were brilliant people. So Zeen, Amalina, I had one Pakistani with me who I became
Yeah,
really good friends with, Wajiha, and Tayeba and Nita. So we had this, and Tito. So we had this amazing group of friends, Luisa. And I think that was the best part about it, because and I say this to all of your viewers, especially those of them
yeah,
who are going studying internationally for the first time. It's so important to have a support system, because that's really your protective factor, right? That will really determine the quality of your experience. So I'm
yeah,
really grateful I had that.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be my big high. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to get a bit candid with you right now because thank you for being very visible on LinkedIn and for like just challenging the status quo, especially like how collective interviews are like. I do know that human behavior and psychology of interviewers, most of the things you cannot predict beforehand. So if you're okay, can you walk us through your interview experience? What went well? What could have been better?
My interview experience for the OPP, or what? Like which one?
Yeah, for the OPP.
So the OPP, in interviewing experience, and I'll just also draw comparisons to other interview processes. It was one that was hyper focused on research, and it was about how, because that's fundamentally what they're looking for, is for people to be able to do rigorous research and lead research, and I guess they value independent thinking. I,
Yeah,
of course, don't sit in their brains, so I wouldn't know what exactly they're looking for. But I think, as is the case with any grad program, it's very important to be able to defend why you want to study what you want to study. So there's that element. And the other thing is more specifically how your work can connect to the challenges Pakistan is facing at this point in
okay.
time. So, I mean, a lot of my research has to do with mental health, as outcomes. So, in terms of outcomes of like my research, and of course, we know for a fact that Pakistan has a huge mental health epidemic going on. It's underreported and deeply stigmatized. For your viewers again, who might not know this, suicide was decriminalized in Pakistan in 2022. So before that, it was a criminal offense to attempt suicide in Pakistan, framed under the Pakistani Penal Code, which of course isn't really helpful to anybody. So that was the case that I made. And of course, this was in 2022, I think, or 2023. Yeah. So it was very
Okay.
near, it was very topical, very timely. So I think that's one thing that really helped. I think other areas of interest are definitely, things that are there. There's things that will always stay relevant to Pakistan, like education, like poverty. But then there's also new things like climate change and AI that are coming
Yeah,
up, suddenly becoming very relevant to Pakistan. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, just for this OPP, just to go back on what you just mentioned right now, the Oxford Pakistan scholars, they are looking for someone who has a very high interest in research.
I mean, yeah, I think that was certainly the case for me, because my entire pitch was centered around research and raising the intellectual capital of Pakistan, because there's very few, pieces of research coming out of Pakistan. So we rank very poorly on the academic index in
Okay.
the global index. So there's very few, um, outputs being produced, especially considering the fact that we're like the fifth largest democracy in the world.
Mm,
So that was my larger pitch about how I, want to change the research landscape in Pakistan. And of course, that still holds true.
yeah.
So
Well, thank you very much. So, just to go back again on if someone like me, for example, I don't qualify for Oxford and I'm interested in the education social intervention program, I do have a very high GPA because we know how Oxford is very big on academic merit. But if you have to break down academic merit in your own language, what can someone build during the undergrad so that they can qualify for a very prestigious scholarship like OPP and Oxford own internal award as well?
Right. No, I think that's also a really good question. I think the best thing is to start early.
Yeah.
I think as soon as you decide that you want to go to grad school and that's something that you want to really pursue, then ensuring that your transcript is aligned with that, taking courses that are, of course, interest to you, but also that can help communicate to an admissions committee that you are a better fit than, um, because you're of course like competing with a whole host of applicants, right? So I think communicating that, taking rigorous coursework, and also leading an independent research project. um,
Okay.
I think that's something that really helped me. So I led an independent project which was supervised by Dr. Rabia Kamal. It was again also very timely because I was looking into how people were remaking the world online during the pandemics. Of course, you had, all those like trends coming up, like the Dalgona coffee trend, and like, other things coming up, and how basically community spaces were being reorganized in times of crisis by Gen Zs and certainly millennials also. So I think that's also important, and also having, very strong letters of recommendation. I think
Yes.
that also really helps. Having that those kinds of terms with your professors. I think that's something that really helped me. Yes, I think at the undergrad level, having all of these things is a good bet to place your effort in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're going on about the independent project, and I like when I know that you can always build your independent project. But how did you start? Like, what is the starting point? Like, how did you network with professors or find out that this is something you want to build an independent project on?
Well, honestly, it mostly started with a few observations. I think I was really lucky to have a very supportive,
Yeah,
mentor. I'll just say her name again. Her name's Professor Rabia Kamal. She currently teaches at LUMS in the sociology and anthropology department. So we
okay,
would speak a lot during, we discuss this in our qualitative research methods class a lot. And so then towards the end, I suggested that I wanted to look into this more deeply, of course, because we were going through the pandemic. So I wanted to make the best use of my time, I guess, because of course you're locked in at home and you want to be able to do something productive. And yeah, I wanted to kind of, instead of seeing the pandemic as this kind of hurdle, I wanted to lean into it and make it a site of my study. So that's what ended up happening. And of course, I received encouragement from her, and that's how it kind of like, became this larger project that we decided to do. Yeah.
okay. I think I did something similar like that, and I think general advice for anyone listening in, just reach out to the professor you have been working with. Yeah, always ask. You never know when an opportunity comes up. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think it's so important to reach out to your professors and not be, I mean, of course, like there's, like we're all a bit intimidated and scared, but I think it's so
yeah,
important to reach out because it's like, that's something that will pay off in much greater return, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
And coming back to you are now back at Habib, and you're doing a pre-doc here. What is a pre-doc, and how does this fellowship help people? Can I enroll right now?
So I'll just tell you a bit more about the Dean's Pre-Doctoral Fellowship at Habib. It's
Okay,
first of its kind, and what it essentially does is that it is in line with the idea that Pakistan needs to, increase its intellectual scholarship and capital. So what it does is it takes everybody who has done grad school from abroad, and then you have up to 3 years. So you don't have to
okay,
do all 3 years. You have up to 3 years to research, to teach, to engage in community service,
okay.
and to build your portfolio for your PhD project.
Right.
So that's what the Dean's Fellowship is, structured around. And I think admissions open to the fellowship, they open around, I want to say October,
Okay.
and candidates usually hear back in May. So that's the timeline. There's more details on the website regarding my fellowship
Okay.
experience. So my big task was, of course, getting my master's thesis published, which happened. So
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
thank you. If anybody wants to read it, it's also on suicide in Pakistan.
I
It's
would
on
love to.
LinkedIn, and
Um,
and the other thing is, then Habib also gives you a lot of grants. So I got this research grant to look into how young people are using AI for issues relating to health. Of course, we've seen the rise in AI, and a lot of young people, given Pakistan's gaps in health and
yeah.
healthcare service delivery, are turning to ChatGPT to ask about, like, okay, like I have this skin condition, is this ringworm, or like, how do I navigate this difficult relationship, or do I have this STD, or is this AIDS and stuff like that. So that's the other project that I'm looking into. Of course, as you can tell, all of my projects are very much centered around young people and mental health. And yeah, so that's the fellowship, and that's about my experience. If your
So,
viewers have more questions about this caller, they can write to me, or they can look at the website, or they can reach out to Colleen Ferrand,
okay.
who's the director of the Dean's Fellowship at Habib.
Ethan, I think ever since I have known you and your twin brother, Hachan as well, I think you both are very big on taking up very difficult questions. I know
Yeah,
it takes some very high level of courage and bravery to be able to do that. And I think I'm kind of that person as well. But honestly, it's very commendable because not many people are talking about mental health from a child perspective, that it's happening, but it's underreported, and we do not have the faculty to address them as much as we need them to.
absolutely.
So do you have like the backing from the fellowship program? It helps you reach out to the researchers already working in this field. How does it work in terms of project?
I'm sorry, Kala, could you repeat that?
Yeah, so I think you're in this fellowship program to help possibly be in a PhD program one day, right? So for your
Mhm.
PhD one day, whenever it happens, this fellowship is preparing students or scholars to think about how to build a huge portfolio of researchers and literature so that you can go forward in that direction. How does it happen on campus? Like, do you have academic
Right.
classes? Yeah.
Right. So it's a very DIY, do-it-yourself kind of experience. But
Oh,
what
okay.
I benefited from the most is you're in this community and you have access to the world's, some of the Pakistan's best
Yeah.
academics. You can get all your, personal statements, your research ideas proofread by them. It's really this vibrant academic community where you can be like, okay, I want to research this. These are my methods. And you can, get an anthropologist, a sociologist, a political scientist, an economist to come in
Okay.
from different perspectives, and to really, like, help you trim down your ideas. So for this, I think, again, Colleen, who's a sociologist, was super helpful because suicide is a fundamentally sociological issue, right? And then Dr. Sarah Zeddi, who's a public health professional, was also super helpful in
Okay.
streamlining.
Yes.
So you have access to this huge, wonderful community that's willing to take out the time to proofread everything. So that's one thing. The other thing it does is that you can audit anything that's happening on campus. So, for example, I have no understanding of how LLMs work or what machine learning is. I was trained as an economist. I wasn't really trained as a data scientist, but I work a lot with data. So you could sit in any class, free of cost and learn, provided that, of course, the
Yeah.
person who's facilitating that class is comfortable with it. You can sit in any class and you can learn more about it. And that's another way that this happens. There's also a bunch of grants. So you have the research grant, the Dean's Fellowship Research Grant, then you have the Techie Grant, then you have the Professional Development Grant. So if you want to go to a conference, or if you want to present research, or if you want to publish research, um, they're willing to fund it. You
Oh,
can
wow.
use
That
assistance,
is
and
very That's
yeah,
very good to know. That's very good to
yeah.
know because we need more these kind of DIY research experience. It's kind of like a real fellowship there and happening in Pakistan, I think, based
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Habib.
no, absolutely. And one thing I will say is that, and this is a lot of, I'm eternally grateful to Colleen for this. But if you look at other pre-doctoral fellowships, it's mostly like, at other places in the high income world, it's mostly academics leading the research, and then you're like a glorified research assistant for them, and you just say that you were a pre-doctoral fellow. It's not really a fellowship. With Habib, it's different. And it's truly a fellowship that's on your terms, so it's really centered around your academic input and how much you want to take ownership of that project. That makes
Love
sense.
this. Honestly, I would personally recommend more people to look into this because while
Absolutely.
they are coming back from master, they are planning what to do next. But being in an intellectual community, it helps you like keep grounded to your idea for life, maybe.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Esther. This was very insightful. But just to have you one more minute.
Yes.
Anything that you want to share with the people listening today or anytime away from academic, any life advice or anything?
I just want to say, I guess, like, and this is like such a catch-all, but I remain available for anyone who wants help, especially people who come from low income or middle income backgrounds, who come from, positions and places where they have been excluded from opportunities. I remain available to help you out, because I didn't have a lot of those opportunities. So this is, I think, I treat it like my life's calling in many ways. So if there's anybody out there who's listening and feels like they could benefit from my help, especially in public health in any way, then please feel free to write to me. You can also message
Perfect.
LinkedIn, and then
Perfect.
yeah, yeah. So
Thank
yeah,
you very much for being very generous with that. And I think people would love to get in touch with you, even if it's like a paid mentoring for a while, just to see how you can tap back into the opportunities available to you, despite coming
absolutely,
from a low or middle income background. Because we know how access is in Pakistan, we know that.
absolutely, 100%.
Uh, okay, Hector, thank you very much. And I will let you know when this goes up on my YouTube.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kala.
Thank you.